Hello and welcome to episode 43 of the Knitting Pickle Podcast. My name is Laura Penrose and I'm a knitwear designer, content creator, and we are going to get into the knitting chat today. I have got some exciting things, a pattern launch, brand new designs that I've not shared here on YouTube yet. We're going in depth, we've got some failed projects, and we've got some just general catching up to do. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing to watch this video. Welcome if you're brand new. And without further ado, I'm going to get into it pretty quickly today. I'm on a little bit of a time limit. I've got 1 hour to film this, but I think that's good. I've been enjoying keeping the podcasts kind of around or under an hour and doing them a little bit more frequently than, you know, leaving it a month and a half and it being, you know, 90 minutes long. So we're going to get straight into it today. I am not wearing any knitwear today. One, because I'm hot. Two, because I've got a lot of neckwear to be showing you and trying on. So I didn't want to overheat myself. It's the most stunning spring day. Got my daffodils bringing the vibes, and I'm just in a really good mood. The blue sky is literally filling my soul at the moment. So I'm going to try my hardest not to talk really fast because that happens when I'm in a good mood. So we're going to start off with it straight away. Finished objects, because yes, technically a finished object since I last showed you, but also a pattern launch. So yay! This video is going live on Saturday, the 8th of March, which is also Russell Scarf release day. Yay! I feel like this has happened so fast. And I mean, it has happened fast. It's been, what, 3 weeks since I first shared it, and now we're ready to go. So for those of you who haven't seen the Russell Scarf yet, this was my January dopamine knit. I cast this on at the end of December and worked on it in January, and it tends to happen every year. I get through Christmas, get through Vlogmas, and then I just, I kind of have this big outpouring of creativity, but it's always very much driven by like what I feel like I need at the time. And I needed a big scarf because it was very cold. And I also just had this strong urge to knit something chunky and fluffy and colour work. And that is how the Russell Scarf was born. This is my first sample. It's made with Isiga Soft, and it's just the big fluffy colour work scarf of my dreams. I wanted it to be simple, repetitive, easy, enjoyable, no floats. You can read your own work, you can get to grips with it super fast, and this is what happened. It's called the Russell Scarf, in case you didn't know, after my favourite Formula One driver, because I didn't mean to, but it's giving motorsport, right? With the checkered bits and the kind of grid lines. Honestly, I promise it wasn't on purpose, but it just happened. So I decided to name it after my favourite F1 driver, who is George Russell. It's your year, George. You can do it now. You're the main man. It's time to shine. So I'm going to wrap myself up in this to start off with. This is the big size. It comes in 2 sizes, and I have a sample in the other size. And this is also the 2 colour version. And it's just a giant fluffy scarf. Honestly, you couldn't get much bigger. And this has been keeping me so unbelievably warm and toasty throughout the cold winter that we've been having, and the cold spring. Honestly, this is the first time we've had any kind of really warm-ish weather, and even then I've still been wearing this. I've been going out like without a coat on and with like a woolly jumper or a hoodie, and just wrapping myself up in this bad boy and going to smash the school run. And as you can see, it literally takes over your life. I've had it up over my ears, I've had it up over my face. I just love it. So this is the long size. It's super long, super long. It is, I mean, my sample is around 84 inches, but the lengths kind of vary. It depends how much you block it. It depends if you hit row gauge, but between 80 and 90 inches for the longest size. And that is long. A scarf is usually, they say a scarf should be as long as you are tall. And I am definitely not 90 inches tall. I think I'm like 74 or something like that. I don't know. Or is that 74 centimetres? No, 174 centimetres. I don't know. I'm 5'7" and 3/4 to be exact. So this is definitely longer than it needs to be, but it means you can get that beautiful double wrap. I also really like to wear it like you folded it in half and then bring it round and pull it through the middle. When I'm wearing my V-neck coat, it just fills in that gap. And you can kind of, this way round, when I have it tucked in, you don't get the checkerboard and you just get the stripes, and it's lovely. So much fun. I'm so pleased with it. And then, as I mentioned, I've got a second sample. I don't think I had cast this on when I last podcast. I'm not too sure. But I wanted to do a smaller, slightly more practical size. So I'm calling this size regular. It is more like 60 inches long, which is a little bit more usual. But the length of this pattern is completely up to you, really. There's guidance in the pattern about that, but because of the kind of slightly random yet repetitive nature of the colour work, you can basically stop at any point. The scarves both end with like a solid one colour, so as long as you stop at the end of like a section and then do that, then your scarf is always going to look finished and complete. It's not going to look like you've just like stopped in the middle of a repeat or whatever, because it's random. So this, the big one is 3 repeats basically, and the small one is 2 repeats, and there are slightly less stitches. It's not as wide either. I used Drops Air to make this. I really wanted to make sure that this pattern would work with Drops Air, because I just know so many people who have it in stash, who have a ball or two like left over, and this version, which has 3 colours in it and is the smaller size, each colour is less than 1 ball of Drops Air. So if you've got those pesky balls hanging around, that sounded wrong. This is excellent for that. So you can see with this one, it's a little bit more a little bit less in your face, but you still get that lovely cozy wrap around, tuck it into your coat, but you've not got huge amounts of excess underneath. You can just about do the half fold, and you end up with the checkerboard in this version, like front and center. Love that. And then you've got like a little bit left at the end there. So yeah, it's super versatile, and you could basically knit this at any gauge that you like and at any stitch count that you like, as long as it's within the pattern repeats. And again, that's all covered in the pattern. It tells you what to do about gauge and making your own stitch counts and everything like that. The test knit has been so unbelievably fun. Like, I knew it was going to be a fun one, because this pattern is there's just so much scope to do different things with it, different colour combinations. We've had people who have done them in one colour but with different textures. Incredible. My friend Chu made one like completely off gauge, completely off size, using super massive chunky boucle from Zakami and Newton, and it's huge. It's even bigger than this one. It looks incredible. It looks like almost like a faux fur stole. It's amazing. We've had people make scrappy ones, which I was really hoping for, because it's such a fun opportunity to use up your scraps. I do talk in the pattern about the kind of yarn that you should really be using, and in this case, anything blown or unspun is perfect. If you've got that chunky solid spun merino, it's not going to work. Your scarf is going to be incredibly heavy. I mean, technically it would work, and if you're okay with that, then I guess there are no wrong ideas, but I would lean more towards those lighter, fluffier, floaty yarns. Woolen spun yarns, excellent. But also multiple strands, so you could hold like 3 strands of mohair together, or a strand of wool fingering and Surrey alpaca, or a couple of strands. Like, the possibilities are endless, but you want to aim for floaty, light, soft wonderfulness. The regular size also makes a great big scarf for a kid. My daughter loves this one. She was a bit unsure at first. She was like, oh, it's itchy, but any kind of feeling that isn't super soft and smooth, she says it's itchy at first, but when she wears it over, like if she's got like something with a high collar and she wraps it round over her coat, like she loves it, and it looks like really big and chunky on her. It's so cute. So yeah, a really fun, super versatile pattern. The possibilities are endless, and yeah, I'm really proud of this one. It was just that pure dopamine knit, following my heart, doing what I loved, and I enjoy all my patterns that I make, but those ones are always like particularly special, I think. So the Russell scarf is available on Ravelry and my website as of today when this video goes live, and as always there will be a discount code for everyone for the first weekend. So just use the code Russell10 and you'll get 10% off the scarf until midnight on Monday, Greenwich Mean Time. I'll put all the details in the description box below. So yeah, there you go. That's the Russell scarf. That's my latest release. Is there any more news before we move on to projects? I don't know. I've not spoken to you since I went to Unravel, did I? I went to Unravel a couple of weeks ago and did a talk, my first ever like public appearance type gig thing, which was absolutely terrifying but really, really fun. I'm really glad I went. Thank you to everybody who came along. Thank you to everybody who encouraged me and left me a comment on my last video, you know, telling me like it would be fine. It was absolutely fine. I had such a good time and I definitely think I'd do it again. So yeah, went to Unravel. That was great fun. And yeah, I don't think there's any other admin-y bits to catch up on. If you would like to see a little look around Unravel and a little glimpse at my talk, my beautiful friend Anna has started her first YouTube channel. And she filmed it and she shares what yarn she got, and it's just a lovely video. So I will link Anna below. Please go and check out her video and her YouTube channel. It's so scary to do this. I will never forget pressing live for the first time and just how scary it is. So I implore you, go and show her some love and check out her video. So on to one more thing. I have recently become an affiliate for the Woolly Thistle. How fun is that? I've never done affiliate links before and I'm not going to bang on about it. I've been sent some Woolly Thistle yarn that's on its way to me, which I'll share with you at some point. I'm really excited to use, but just, you know, because business, linked below in the description box as well will be my affiliate code for the Woolly Thistle. So if you're in America and you're looking for British wool, it's a great place to go. I was really nervous about like doing this type of thing, doing an affiliate link, but I shared it on my Patreon and I just had like so many people saying to do it and that they love the Woolly Thistle and that they give great service and there's great selection, speedy delivery, all that kind of thing. And it just made me think, yes, I think this is the right fit for me. The majority of my audience is American, which is crazy to me, absolutely mental. So if I can team up with someone who can provide the kind of wools that I use, John Arbon, Woolly Mammoth sometimes, different European yarns, not just British yarns as well, and of course American yarns as well, then it seemed like a really good fit. So if you are a customer of the Woolly Thistle and would also like to support me a little bit, you can click the link in my bio and then I get a little commission from anything that you get. No extra cost to you, but it just helps support me a little bit, and I can also help support the Woolly Thistle by sending you guys there. So thank you for that awkward little bit of admin. Let's do some knitting chat. So I have got some finished objects for you here and a whip of the same thing, and you might find there's a little bit of a theme in this episode. I seem to be going through quite the scarf era. I got myself a different type of matcha and I don't like it. It's really bitter. I put honey in it. That's disappointing. Anyway, speaking of matcha, I've got a finished object that matches my beverage. I recently received a box of yarn samples from Mode at Rowan. No strings attached, just here's our new colours, here's our new yarn, have a little look, see what you think. Off you go on your business. And I was instantly inspired by these yarns. And this idea wasn't something that I'd been thinking of before. It literally like lit up in my brain when I saw these yarns, and I don't have the rest of the box to show you, but I've got the samples to show you. So Mode at Rowan sent me a selection box of their cotton DK and a fluffy one, the alpaca haze, I think, which I've not had to try with yet, but oh, stunning. Beautiful for the Russell scarf. And so it's this box of like different, like one ball of each different colour of their cotton DK, little 50-gram balls. And I was like, oh my goodness, these are so beautiful. Like, wow, I instantly want to make something fun and stripy and like some kind of fun neckwear with it. And I'm kicking myself because I ripped it out. My original sample that I made that did not work out, I'm so annoyed at myself, but I'm pretty sure I did take a picture, so we'll put that in here. And I basically done a tip-to-tip garter scarf, and it was all white and it had different coloured stripes as we go along, done with intarsia, so the stripes didn't go quite to the edges and they had nice border. And I was absolutely loving it. It was going along really, really well. But after I washed and blocked the little bit that I'd done, I realised that my ends from all those different colours, because I was breaking the yarn every single time, were really, really obvious from the right side, and it looked kind of messy in the back as well. Obviously, if you're doing a single colour stripe and breaking the yarn every time, you've got ends to weave in. And with something like wool, which is a lot more forgiving, it blooms, it puffs up, you can hide those ends so much more easily. I was doing like a weave as you go technique, but you could just, it was just so obvious from the wrong side. Like as the shawl got bigger, you could see at one side where all those ends were, and then the rest was just like white. You could just kind of see it through the fabric. I also did a needle size too large, and I was really disappointed because I had this vision and I thought it looked so fun, but it just wasn't working. So I adapted, I changed, I refocused, I had a little think, and then came the Jaques scarf, which is this little fella right here. Here he is. I'll tell you why it's called the Jaques scarf in a minute. But I basically restarted, but just using the two colours. I went for the pink and the navy because I just thought it was so fun, really like preppy and springy, but not like typically springy, not like Easter egg springy, not like my Russell scarf sample. But basically the idea was to have just the simple I-cord along one side and this much thicker, flatter, double knit border along the other side. And I don't really know why I wanted this, but I felt like it would just kind of give this very classic, very popular scarf shawl shape at the moment, just something a little bit different, kind of elevate it a little bit. And it was really important to me that the stripes were not in the border. I just think it looks so classy and so interesting. And it's done with intarsia, but the most easiest, simple intarsia you've done in your life. Like, I have messed about with intarsia before, but I've never done a project in full intarsia. So technically this was the first time I did it too. And it's so easy. You're actually only working intarsia when you work a contrast stripe. Everything else is just with the normal yarn. And I filmed a little video this morning, like a little mini tutorial to go with it, as I'm about to launch the test knit for this. I did the test call over on my Instagram a couple of days ago, and I'm going to be letting testers know tomorrow and launching the test knit. Why do I do this to myself? Why do I start a test knit like when I've also got a pattern release to do or a Unravel talk to prepare for? I forget every time just how much work launching a test knit is. But here we go. So I was working on my scarf, really, really happy with it. And I was getting towards here, the middle, and I thought, right, okay, so I'm running low now. How can I use up as much of this these two 50-gram balls of yarn in different colours as possible? As I was keeping track of how much yarn I was using for the stripes and how much for the body. And basically when I got to the point where I had the same amount of yarn I used for the stripes left of the main colour, or colour one, I switched them so that I knew I had enough yarn to do the stripes and enough yarn to do the main bit. And I'm obsessed. I think it's so fun. I just love the look of it. And again, just kind of like the yarn dictated it. Like, I love doing designs like that. That's very much how the Sweet Shop was born. I had the yarn, I wanted to use very specific amounts. I didn't want any wastage, and it shapes the design. Like, clearly I had an aesthetic vision in mind, but when the process and the yarn also guide those design decisions, honestly, it tickles my knitting pickle. How long has it been since I've said that? For those of you who are new around here, my podcast is called the Knitting Pickle Podcast because right at the beginning, before I was even a designer, I would get so excited about these little random bits of knitting that I was learning as a brand new knitter, and I just wanted to talk about them and share them. And I often say on my Instagram, oh, it tickles my pickle, which is a very British saying, and it just means it just gets you, it's exciting, it just does a thing to you, it tickles your pickle. So that's why this is called a knitting pickle. And that process of letting the yarn guide the design fully tickles the knitting pickle. Oh, I love it. So I carried on and I got to the end, and I literally have like 2 little 1 gram balls left, which I don't know why I'm holding on to them. I feel a little bit sentimental about them, but I've still got them, holding on to them. I decided that was a little too close for comfort, so when I wrote the pattern, that it's a little bit shorter than my sample. I just removed like 1 round of increases and decreases, just so we had a little more contingency left over. But if you meet gauge and if you track your yarns properly, then there you go. You can use up those 2 random balls. Obviously, I have used 100% cotton. It's so soft. It's beautiful. It really is lovely, and it doesn't have that dryness that I find a lot of cotton has. It also doesn't feel massively heavy. Obviously it's only 100 grams, so it doesn't feel heavy, but it's ever so lovely to wear. And I think the cotton is perfect because we're about to go into spring. Now, you don't have to knit it in cotton at all. I'm encouraging my testers to use whatever fibres they like. Honestly, you could use anything. It just would not matter because there's no structure involved. It's a piece of fabric that you drape around your neck. And that is just so fun, right? Like, such a good stash diver. So the way I wear this smaller one, I quite like. I've got a new coat that I've ordered. I've needed a new spring coat for a long time, but I've never wanted to commit, and I found one that I really love, and I ordered it the other day, and it's kind of ecru creamy white, and I think this is just gonna look so fun on top of it. So what I like to do with this one, which is a smaller one, there are 2 sizes in the pattern, is just a really simple, I like to wear very plain, simple, black, white, grey, brown, beige, that kind of thing. But I'm really enjoying bringing little pops of colour to my wardrobe now, and this is just one of those lovely ways to do it. I love how you've got the blue, pink, and then it reverses here, and it just sits around your neck and brings you a little bit of warmth, but it's also a bit it's like fashion. It's not just a practical need. Scarves are often, we need them to keep us warm. It's a very practical thing, but it feels quite nice to be making a choice with fashion in mind as much as need, and it's just lovely. So this smaller size, I'm gonna step back for you so you can see how it just kind of sits around your neck, super chic, super French, ooh la la, very, very cool. I love it. And just that thicker edge, I love it. I really feel like it elevates it, and I'm so happy with it. So once I had done this sample, I thought, well, maybe not everyone wants to do the 2 colour switcheroo thing. And wouldn't it be nice if there was a slightly bigger one that made use of 100 gram balls of yarn? Because if I can make it scrappy, if I can make it use up as much yarn as possible, then I'm going to make it happen. So I cast on another one. I ordered some more of the yarn. I knew I could have messaged Mode and been like, can I have a bit more? And they would have sent it, but I was just so eager that I was like, quick, Wool Warehouse, next day delivery, go, go, go. So excited. And I ordered a little bit more in this beautiful pistachio green colour. I believe it's called pistachio, and this is what I'm talking about when I say my scarf matches my beverage. If I was a posy thumbnaily person, that would be my thumbnail. But yeah, it's this gorgeous pistachio colour, and I basically again let the yarn dictate the size, and I just kept keeping track of how much yarn I was using, and when I got within a gram or 2 of the end of my 50 gram ball of green, I changed to my new one. So overall, this scarf for me has used about 98 grams of 100 grams of DK weight yarn, and the white, the contrast stripe, is less than 50 grams as well. I think it came in at about 35 to 40. So if you've got 100 grams of this, 50 grams of this, boom, you've got yourself a Jaques scarf. But what this would also be fantastic for is if you have a sock set with 2 minis. So you have your fingering weight, 100 grams, you hold it double, and you shed, and that will make the same amount of yardage as DK weight, 100 gram skein. So you use your main skein for this, and then on one half you do one mini, and then on the other half you do the other mini. Now the way it works is there is the center of this version is a white line, but there's a bit in the pattern which tells you what to do if you are using two different colours, and so basically you shift things along, makes it symmetrical. Everything is covered in the pattern as always, and like I said, there's a little tutorial on how to do the intarsia, and I'm hoping that I can bring this to you guys, to Ravelry, to make yourself in April. The test is going to be 4 weeks long, but like the Russell test, which I've actually managed to finish early, I might be able to do the same with the Jaques. With the Russell test, I basically just ask for one repeat and then please can I have your feedback, because it's the same thing repeated 2 or 3 times. I didn't need my testers to complete the whole scarf to confirm everything that I needed, like yardage, gauge, everything in the pattern, whether it works, because once you didn't want, you're just repeating it again. So I was able to gather enough feedback from my wonderful testers and release a little bit earlier. So it's a 4-week test, but I feel like we might well be able for it to be like a little bit sooner, but it's basically going to be April for this guy. So like I said, you've got the 2 sizes and they both have instructions for using. I'm calling this single colour, even though I know there are 2 colours here. I just feel like single colour is appropriate when you're comparing it to the switched colour of the other sample. Editing Laura here. I realised I forgot to show you my green scarf actually on, like the difference in the sizes. So obviously this one is bigger than the 2 colour version that I've got, and I like to wear this one by kind of going from the front first and then pulling it round and tying it in a little old knot, kind of like a more traditional way that you would wear a scarf. It offers a little bit more warmth, I think, but not too much. Again, perfect to just tuck into the top of a v-neck coat or something like that, and yeah, it gives a bit more of a kind of normal scarfy vibe that way. So yeah, that's the other one. Back to past Laura. So that's the Jaques scarf. Why is it called the Jaques scarf? I forgot to tell you. Well, I posted this one on Instagram and my friend Marina messaged me saying it was giving her Jack Wills vibes. Now, I think Jack Wills is a British thing. It's like a clothing brand that was really, really popular in the noughties. It has this kind of like preppy, kind of posh, like it's not something that I ever owned, but it's kind of got this preppy, posh, kind of fancy vibe to it. And their colours were always like navy and this kind of blushy pink colour. And as soon as Marina said it's giving me Jack Wills vibes, I was like, oh, I can't unsee it now. Oh my goodness, you're so right. Haha, maybe I should call it the Jack scarf. And then I was like, hang on a minute, let's elaborate on this further. I was going for French chic, so it's not the Jack scarf, it's the Jaques scarf. So that's where the name came from. Makes me laugh. I love naming knitwear. It's like naming children. It's fantastic. So in front of me, I have a 3rd sample because I just could not help myself. And I wanted one that was not cotton as well. And I had some of this yarn like in stash, like left over from another project. And I really wanted to see if it would work because I'm knitting up my next sample in cashmere. Now, the cashmere that I'm using is the Cardiff Cashmere Classic. And even though it's a 25-gram ball, it still has the same yardage as a 50-gram ball of normal DK. And that's because it's so light and floaty, you just get so much more meterage for your yarn. So you can make a Jaques scarf using 2 balls of cashmere. Now obviously cashmere is a very high-end yarn, it's very expensive and it's not something most people would have access to, but if you decided you wanted to try cashmere, experience it, make a small project that uses every single bit of it and you only need 2 balls, then this is a great opportunity to do that. I was worried I wouldn't be able to get gauge, but so far so good. I've literally only worked the tiniest little bit, but look how fabulous this looks. I'm so pleased. It's just fantastic. It's so like French summer, and I think when I've got my nice like white ecru coat, I'm just gonna be like, ooh la la, maybe I'll wear my red beret as well, go the whole hog. But yeah, this is my next little sample. Honestly, they're so fun and satisfying to knit. Like I can't stop myself. And yeah, I think it's just a really nice use for those more luxurious yarns. Maybe you want to treat yourself to something, but we don't want to be doing a whole big sweater quantity of it, but you still want to experience it. Then it's great for that as well. Those are the colours, by the way, Hermes, and this was left over from a scarf that I made for my husband. And this is, I want to say, Neve. It's basically white. So there you go. That's all the scarves. That's all the scarves. The Jaques scarf is going into testing. Should be with you in a few weeks. Really, really excited. I just love scrappy projects that don't look like scrappy projects. I feel like I've found my niche. So moving into other whips. I haven't worked on my mango sweater. I kind of decided with that one that I think the yarn, it just isn't really working for it. I keep going back and forth. I've picked it up once or twice, but I've not been in the mood to work on it. So I think I'm going to probably leave that rest for a little while now. My pink and white sibling that I'm making for my daughter, again, not touched that in a little while, just not been in the mood for it. And let me grab my little project bag. My favourite project bag in the world, made by my mother for my birthday. I just love it. What have we got in here? So, ooh, here's a little project that I'd forgotten about that I'm kind of working on, don't know. And when I went to Unravel, I picked up some John Arbon sock yarn because I couldn't resist their new colour. And I have made a single sock, a little textured sock. Who even am I? But yeah, when I wound up this yarn, I was like, it just needs to be textured. The John Arbon sock yarn it's super wash treated wool, but it's still got this very rustic feeling to it. And I'm surprised at how nice it feels on my feet. Like I thought I wouldn't like it just because of my sensory processing disorder, but it's really, really nice. And I've gone with this kind of diagonal line, textured situation. Heel flap and gusset. Who am I? I'm obsessed with heel flap and gusset at the moment, but the texture continues over the heel and then all the way down the foot and on the bottom. And the plan is for the second sock to be going in the opposite direction. So like when you're looking down at your feet, it's like an arrow, like pointing forward. So I have not got round to working up the second one yet because I just got very much distracted by scarves. But I have written up the pattern for this. I've done the charts, I've done the written. I think it's pretty much good to go, but I'm going to wait until I have worked up my second sock. My other thing is, I think my gauge might be a bit of an issue when it comes to sock knitting. Now, until recently, I've always knit my socks on 2.5mm needles, and I know that that is quite large for most sock knitters. Most will be 2.25 or even 2mm needles, and because the stitch counts for this are not your usual sock stitch counts because it's a 5-stitch repeat. Well, I don't make my life easy on myself, do I? Things were just getting a little bit tricky, and I feel like knitters trying to get my gauge on their normal sock needle whilst going slightly different stitch counts, it was just all getting a bit confusing. I finally bought myself a little set of the Chalgu mini interchangeables so that I now have sock needles on those smaller sizes. I've up until this point been using Addy Sock Wonders, which I love, but I cannot get them under a 2.5mm, and that is the reason why I knit socks on 2.5mm needles. I don't like short circulars where the needles are teeny tiny in the same length. I like that one is longer on the Addy Sock Wonder. So many people said get the Chalgus because they come with 2 lengths of tip and you can mix and match, and don't know why I was resisting it for so long, but I got them and I'm loving using them, really, really enjoying it. So I can now knit at a slightly tighter sock gauge, and I've wanted to knit at a tighter gauge as well because I feel like that will give me slightly stronger socks as well. I wear through my socks really quickly, especially on the toes, so I feel like if I can create a tighter fabric, then that's going to make them like a little bit stronger as well. So I don't really know what to do. I don't know whether to finish this pair on my normal needle and measure the gauge and get going with it, or to start a new pair on my normal needle, get the gauge from that, and then I can launch the test and everything and finish the second sock as and when I feel like it. Would that happen? I don't know. I can't decide. I really, really can't decide. I think I should probably take a gauge measurement for this and just see how incredibly different it is than a normal. How have I not got a tape measure? They're normally like everywhere. Do not fret, I've got a little jar of them. It's like measuring gauge over a texture is just not the one, is it? It's really difficult. 30 stitches per 10 centimetres / 4 inches for a sock. Is that beyond the realms of normal? Tell you what, I'm going to reference something I probably reference a million times in my life, is the Rye Sock by Tin Can Knits. Excellent first sock project, so good. Comes in DK, comes in fingering weight, is free. It's got so much information in it. It's first sock I ever knit and I loved it. What's the gauge for that? 32 stitches. Now you see, I'm 2 stitches looser than that. DRK Everyday Socks, another really common knitting pattern. These are ribbed and they're 32. Hermione's Everyday Sock pattern. Now that's a really popular textured design and that's 36 stitches per 10 centimetres. In stocking stitch though. That's interesting because the socks aren't in stocking stitch. So why is the gauge in stocking stitch? That's interesting. But yeah, either way, I'm getting the vibe that 30 stitches is quite a loose gauge for socks. So I think I've answered my own question there, really, haven't I? I think I'm going to knit them again at a smaller gauge because, to be honest, they are a little bit big for me anyway. It effectively means that this sock is kind of useless, although if I finish this pair, they should fit my husband. So I won't completely abandon this and I can still use them because they still look like they're supposed to look. Thank you for letting me think out loud there. That's often how I figure things out. So that's another little kind of design whip that's going on at the moment. I think I might do them in like a very gently variegated yarn. I've still got my sock yarn from the Fibre Fox advent calendar, like the big skein you open on Christmas Day, that's very subtly dyed. Shall I get it? Should we go in the bed? Yeah, look at that. Wouldn't that be beautiful? So subtle, little speckles. Wouldn't hopefully like jar with the texture. Who knows? We'll see. But that's another little socky boy for you. I'm in no rush to kind of get that through the process. Obviously with the scarves, we want to get them out sooner rather than later before it gets too warm. But the socks are kind of like all year round. You can release a sock pattern at any time of year and it should be fine. So while we're on the subject of socks, I have another sock on the go at the moment. Not a design, just a vanilla sock. If you are my mother and you like surprises, look away now, please. Thanks, Mum. I am making a pair of socks for my mum for Mother's Day. I did it last year and she absolutely loves them. I've made her a few pairs of socks, but she says the ones that I made her for Mother's Day last year are her favourites and she loves how they fit, she loves how they look, and yeah. So I'm like, any excuse. I'm just obsessed with sock knitting at the moment. It's my relaxing knitting, it's my evening calm non-work knitting. We have got a sock cal going on over on Patreon at the moment, which is so much fun, and every time I finish a pair of socks I draw a winner and send out sock yarn to that winner. We've got like a finished object thread where you finish a pair of socks, you put it in and you could win some lovely yarn from me. And I'm just finding it so motivating. It's so nice to see people sharing information, sharing techniques, sharing advice and sharing their projects. It's just fabulous. So all about the socks at the moment. So this is one of my Unravel purchases, another one, and this is one of the things I specifically wanted to get from Unravel because I did it last year. I just looked around and waited for some sock yarn that made me think of my mum, and as soon as I saw this I was like, yes. And I don't really know why it makes me think of my mum, but it just does, and I think it's beautiful, and it is knit up so unbelievably gorgeously. I'm so happy. Here we are. Here's my first sock that I made for my mama for Mother's Day. It's all in one colour apart from my little navy pop. I really wasn't sure where to go with this. I thought about maybe pink or maybe rust, I don't know, but I ended up just going with this on the cuff, and as I worked the sock I was like, I don't want anything interrupting this. I'm just really enjoying socks in one colour at the moment. The last pair I made for myself was like a reddish pair, and again I did exactly the same setup of this, a little pop on the top but everything else the same. And we have a heel, flap and gusset. Again, from Mrs. I hate doing heel flaps and gussets, they drive me mad, but I can't stop doing them. And I think every time I do one, I think, how many times do we tell ourselves we don't like something that we tried like once or twice and then we write it off? Not just in knitting, but in life. But sure enough, you give it another go and you may find you absolutely love it. Always try everything at least twice, if not more. So I think it's called an eye of partridge. I might be making this up. I've never seen it formally like written out, but how you would normally do like a slip stitch heel where you do like slip one, knit one, slip one, knit one on one row, and then just knit on the other row. With this heel, you alternate, so your slip stitches aren't in lines, they're like doot, 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 and they almost kind of make like a latticey vibe. You can't really see it in this yarn, to be fair, but that is what my heel looks like. It's meant to be eye of partridge. I really don't know if you can tell, but it makes a super thick heel. I feel like even thicker than a normal slip stitch heel flap. And it's lovely. It just kind of adds this nice little bit of padding and texture, and it's just, yeah, really, really, really nice. And then classic gusset, foot, wedge toe, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. The yarn is Bird Street yarns, one of my favourite sock yarns of all. I've knit many pairs of socks, and a lot of the time the colour fades over time and the dye almost washes out. I find this particularly with neons, but I have another pair that I made for myself, a blue pair from Bird Street yarns, and they are still as bright and vibrant as the day I made them, and they've been through the wash and the tumble dryer many times. So you can just, oh, it's just so beautiful. This is the colourway called Actually Love, and I don't know if it's their Valentine's colourway, but it might be because it's that time of year and it's based on love. But I just really liked how it was dark and warm, but also had these little moments of blue and brown and pink, and I just really liked it. I just thought it's beautiful and my mum would love it, and I just didn't want to interrupt any of the loveliness, so I just did the whole sock like this. I've cast on the second one, but I've still got plenty of time because Mother's Day in the UK isn't until the very end of March, so I've got plenty of time. I'm ahead of myself with a gift knit. Who even am I? Mother, you can come back now if you wish, and we will move on, I think, from that type of project. Okay, fresh battery, sip of matcha. Honestly, one of the bitterest things I've ever tasted. Why? Why is it so bitter? 'Cause I am so bitter. That's a shame. I love matcha. Right, I've got one more whip to show you. And I did show it you in the last episode, but it has developed significantly since I last showed it to you. And that is my cheeky little blanket whip. My unplanned blanket. This was supposed to be the year of no blankets, because last year was a very blanket heavy year, as was the year before, and next year I've got blanket plans as well. So I wasn't planning on doing one, but as I recently renovated my home office, I felt very much in need for an office blanket. So I started to make one, and it is now in my head called the office blanket. And if I release it, that's what it'll be called. I don't know what I've done with my original bit that I showed you last time, but I've got the swatch on my board. So this is what I showed you last week, but I done quite a bit more. I'm basically doing a mitered square blanket, but with a different decrease method in the middle, and the way we are arranging the squares creates one specific, or actually 2 to 3 different types, depending on how you do it, overall looks. And I was using this yarn, which is BC Garn Loch Lomond, which is lovely, and I really want to make a sweater out of it, but I realised that it was not suitable for this because, again, I can't seem to help myself, but I want to make the most of every single little bit of yarn. So if I'm going to do a blanket, I want to make sure that we can use up the whole 100 grams, or whatever it is. I want to make sure that each square is optimum. I was very much planning everything by the weight of the yarn that I was using. Now, BC Yarn Loch Lomond is one of those freaky yarns that is really light and you get loads more yardage for your weight, very much like Cardiff Cashmere. And it was throwing all my numbers off. It's a beautiful yarn, I love the fabric, but when I then came in to add in a different wool of a normal yardage per 100 grams for DK weight, it just was completely off. It didn't really work. It felt much thicker, much heavier, and the amounts that I was using to get the same, like the weight of yarn that I was using to get the same square just didn't really work. So I pivoted, I started again. I also learnt a lot, like from my first kind of go at this, about where to pick up from, how to pick up, cast on methods, edge finishings, because we want it all to be beautifully finished. We don't want to have to add a border if we can help it. I've just realised I've got my little sketch as well. Shall I show you my sketch? This is the vision of the office blanket. You see here, I'm going for this chevron vibe. We've got one, like it's worked in 2 different sides and then we seam up the middle so that we get this beautiful chevron. But the way I have written the pattern, yes, I've already written it up. I wrote it as I went because I've definitely learnt that lesson to do that. It's one of the reasons it's holding me back from the mango sweater. I didn't write as I went, and it was just a bad idea because now I've basically got to start again. But I've written it up to get this and also a zigzag, like a vertical, not like a that way, it's like a that way zigzag. But you could also do it to have it like coming in this way and then going out again that way. There's loads of different like ways you could do it. But yeah, basically a mitre square blanket, the satisfaction of that nice, easy, simple garter knitting. No short rows, only decreasing and picking up, but with that little difference, something a little elevated, something a little, you know, new in the world of mitre squared blankets. Not pretending I invented them, I'm aware. Here we are with my actual sample. Isn't she looking good? So my plan is that she's going to be stripy as well, because I'm still not ready to let go of stripes, it would appear. I thought that was all done and dusted with the sibling sweater, but no, still on my garter. Squares, triangles, stripes. I guess I've got a brand. But I started again with this bottom panel, and this is made with the John Arbon Mill Open Weekend exclusive called Down the Allotment DK from 2023. So you can't get this yarn, but it doesn't matter because the whole point of this blanket is we are using up our 100 gram skeins of woolly yarn that we've got left over. It doesn't have to be woolly if you don't want to, you could use superwash wool. But for me specifically, I wanted something woolly, and I've got a lot of single skeins or 2 skeins of leftover woolly yarn that I don't want to use in socks or I don't want to use in colour work, and they're all of a similar kind of vibe. I've got a lot of browns and greys and whites and beige and all those colours that I absolutely love, and clearly is the vibe of my office. So I thought, well, I'll use them in this nice woolly blanket. And the funny thing is that by the time I finish this, it's probably going to be summer. Or I'll probably work on this throughout the summer, because another nice thing about this is you don't end up with like a huge massive blanket as you go, because it's worked in 2 halves and then seamed up the middle. Or is the zigzag one worked in 2 halves? No, the zigzag one isn't worked in 2 halves, so there's no seaming in the zigzag one, just in the chevron one. And I've done the other half, so I've got, you know, 1 half going this way and 1 half going, oh no. Here we go. Basically you make a mirror image of each other. And there is a way that I could have done the whole thing modularly using some of the techniques similar to the Stella quilt blanket. But one of the things I've really enjoyed about working on this blanket is that every square is the same. Like, obviously I love the Stella quilt blanket, but it's complicated. At least when you start, once you get used to it, it becomes simple and easy. You don't even have to reference the pattern, but there's a lot to get your head around, and there are 4 different joining techniques, and it's all quite like, oh, which square goes where? Whereas with this, it's like you cast it on this way, and then it's the same. So there are slightly different cast on techniques, but once you've cast on or picked up, everything else is the same. And I wanted to maintain that throughout the whole blanket. I didn't want to then introduce another way of joining that's actually really quite complicated. I just wanted it to be a lot more simple than my previous blanket designs. So again, the yarn, the process, how it feels to knit is what is guiding my design decisions, and I love that. I love that for me. I really think that's the core of what I do as a knitwear designer and what makes me special and unique and is like my thing. And I just love that I found that for myself. It's nice. It's just as much about the process, and if I have to sacrifice something visually in order to create a pattern that is more fun and enjoyable to knit, then I will, as long as it's still like the aesthetic that I want. And you know, it's not that I haven't done complicated designs. The eclair sweater, for example, is probably the most complicated thing I've ever written in my life. It's complicated to start with, but then once you get into it, it becomes a lot easier. But that took a lot of maths and a lot of explaining, and you really got to pay attention, and it's intense. And that put me off designing raglans for a long time. Still haven't done one since. So I'm definitely more at home when it comes to just that joy and that simplicity and fun when it comes to the actual knitting process. But that's where I'm at with my blanket. This one, by the way, this top yarn is Drops Soft Tweed, which again has been hanging around the stash for ages. I've got quite a lot of this, so we might see this twice in the blanket. But yeah, just a lovely, woolly, soft, tweedy guy. But there you go. That's where we're at. And I think the piano tuner has just arrived, which is why I was on a time limit. So I may have to sign this vlog off at another point. Depends how long he sits in his van for. But that's everything I'm working. Oh, I missed one. I forgot my failed project. So you may remember I was making a pair of socks for my husband, intending to be for Valentine's Day, though I kind of knew I wasn't going to get them done. I was making him a pair of McLaren socks, and I absolutely abandoned that idea. And here is what, as far as I got. Now, objectively, they look great. They look fine. But I was absolutely hating working on them. Honestly, really, really hated it. I feel like I did the heel flap far too big for starters. My goodness. My husband's feet aren't even that much bigger than mine, but yeah. Really didn't like working on these at all. I didn't like the colour of the yarn. Even though it's like the perfect colour, I just wasn't enjoying working on it. And I had done the McLaren logo going all the way around the leg, which again, I also think looks wicked. I just Googled McLaren logo pixel art and basically found one that was roughly the right size for a pair of socks. And I really enjoyed doing the duplicate stitch, and I think it looks really, really good. But as soon as you put it on, this happens. See what I mean? It just, and especially like, you can see that you just lost all the definition in it, and I just wasn't confident in it. I didn't think it was going to look very good on. When they're on my leg, they're stretched and you lose that lovely McLaren logo. So I think it would have been even more so on his leg, having a bigger foot and a bigger leg than me. So in the end, I just ditched it and bought him a record. He's at my door. Bear with, guys. Okay, I better wrap this up before he starts making a lot of noise up there. Although it's always lovely because when he's finished tuning the piano, he then sits and plays it for a while, and it's like having my own personal concert. It's gorgeous. Also, the sun is giving us some action, isn't it? So yeah, that's my abandoned McLaren socks. I am going to make him a pair of McLaren socks, but I'm just going to go vanilla socks. I want to find like a fun orange hand-dyed yarn, and I will make it not as a surprise, because another reason that I just wasn't feeling confident with these socks is just I didn't know if they were going to fit or not, and that literally sucks the joy. I love knitting socks for my mum and my sister because I know exactly the right amounts that work for them, although obviously that's going to change if I now go down a needle size for my socks. We'll see. But yeah, it's on the list to make him some McLaren socks. I'm going to be knitting socks only when watching the F1 this year, and I'll be starting with Mercedes because I've got some really fun Mercedes yarn and I'm so excited to start knitting on them. But yeah, there you go, that's everything we've got. I haven't got any Instagram saves for you today. I've been really quite busy recently, and I've spent, like, even though I've been posting more on socials, I've kind of been spending a little less time on social, so I've not really been saving anything recently. I think I've just been quite focused in on what I'm creating at the moment. So no Instagram saves today, but please do go and check out Anna's new YouTube channel if you fancy some new viewing. And thank you so much for being here. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. It felt a little crazy. I feel like I've flown through it, but I feel like that every time. Thank you to everybody who watched my last video, which was a week in the life of a knitwear designer. Something a bit new for me here on YouTube. I've not done a weekly vlog in a very long time, but also never just purely focused on what I do work-wise. And I was really quite nervous to show it, but the feedback on it has been wonderful. There were microphone issues, but I asked for your feedback and I'm really happy with the feedback that I got. Everyone was really kind and constructive in their feedback that they were giving, and I really appreciate that. So if you haven't seen it yet, do go check it out if you're intrigued as to what my life looks like day to day as someone who's a full-time knitwear designer. And the next time you will see me will probably be in a couple of weeks. I'm thinking about making a video, like a sit down knit and chat video about how I became a knitwear designer, because that is the question I get the most. If I ever do a Q&A, I get asked over and over again, how did you become a knitwear designer? I know I know it's something a lot of you would be interested in pursuing, whether that's just as like a side gig or as a career. So if you'd be interested in seeing that video, do let me know in the comments, because I'm a little bit unsure whether it's something that will go down well or not. I don't really know. So if you would like to see that, please do let me know in the comments. And without further ado, I'm gonna say goodbye. Thank you so much for joining me. Please, if you're new, subscribe if you want to. I have to say it. I hate saying it, but I have to say it. Yes, please subscribe if you like what I do here, and I really look forward to hanging out with you guys again really soon. Bye bye.